Hey, good day, rising generation. Before we go into our podcast today, just a brief announcement for you. Coming up on the 3rd of October 2016, we're going to be launching a campaign for the Rising Generation Leadership Series. 5 books that I've written based on the interviews we've done with the guests on the podcast over the last 12 months or so. So from all of our interviews, we've found that there are 5 big challenges that leaders have said they've faced on their way to significance. And around those 5 challenges, I've written like 5 books which give you the challenges and the solutions, an amazing tool for any leader out there. And so we're trying to get as many of these books sold as we can through our campaign. And for every copy of the series that we sell, we're going to give £4 away to our charitable work in Ghana, which will allow us to reach young people in the rural areas of Ghana, giving them leadership training, soft skills training, and much more. All right. So I really, really would love your support on that. Please check out the link in the podcast show notes here. And also go to the website, which is www.publishizer.com/The Rising Generation. So guys, we love your support on that. Please share this with your friends and loved ones. And let's take it all the way. Thank you for your support. God bless you. Hello and welcome to the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast with me, Errol Lawson. If this is your first time joining us, we want to welcome you. It's great to have you with us today. The Rising Generation exists to inspire and equip Christian leaders from all walks of life, from all around the world, to fulfill their God-given potential. By hearing these interviews with established, internationally recognized leaders, we hope you'll be inspired to connect the dots between where you are now and where it is God has called you to be. Now, to receive notifications about future episodes, simply subscribe to our podcast show by either on iTunes if you're on Apple, or on Stitcher, the Stitcher app if you're on Android. You can find out how to do that just by going to our webpage at www.errollawson.com/podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with your friends, share it with your loved ones. Hopefully they will also benefit from the content. Guys, thanks for listening. Before we go into today's show, here's some news for you.
At some point in their lives, every great leader runs up against one problem that is simply impossible to ignore. How are they going to fund their vision? Today, Errol is offering you a free copy of his first book in the Rising Generation Leadership Series entitled Big Vision, No Money: 5 Keys to Funding Your Vision. In the book, you'll find guidance from some of the great leaders featured on this podcast about the way Christian leaders should think about money and approach their finances. Simply go to www.errollawson.com to download your copy today. Christian coaching is where more and more leaders turn to increase leadership effectiveness and move forward toward their destiny. If you're looking for a great coach who understands ministry leadership and business principles, connect with Errol Lawson. Errol is a member of the John Maxwell Coaching, Speaking, and Training team and has extensive experience in ministry and Christian leadership training. What do you need to take your ministry, business, or personal life to the next level? Errol can help you refocus, meet a challenging goal, reconnect with your passion for ministry, navigate a transition, or bring balance to your life.
Hello, and thank you again for joining us on the Leadership Blog today. It's a wonderful day here in Birmingham, and I'm connected today to an awesome man of God who's doing some great work in business and in ministry, Dan Maudhub. Dan is has an awesome wife and 2 boys. He's a multi-award-winning entrepreneur who is the founder and MD of a company called Wonderful Creative. He's also a pastor and elder at Jubilee Church in Maidstone. He's passionate to see leaders in business and the church fulfill their potential and realize their dreams. I know it's a brief bio, Dan, but if you will, fill in any gaps for us, please, Dan, and give us a glimpse into your world and what you're up to right now.
Yeah, okay, cool. It's good to chat with you. My world involves a few things, really. Now, I run a creative agency, a digital creative agency called Wonderful Creative, and we work with brands across the globe and help them to grow their digital marketing assets, help them to run campaigns, and effectively we grow their digital business for them. I've been doing that for 7 years, and we've been really blessed and got some great clients on board, got a really, really strong team. At the same time, I've been involved in ministry for the last kind of 13 years as well, I'm an elder of a local church and also a pastor there and help out where I can. And just, helping to really bridge the gap between church and business.
Awesome. And then what were you doing before that 7 years? What was happening? How did you transition into what you're doing right now?
Yeah, well, I started my first business at the age of 24, and it was a consultancy. So I was helping brands to understand how to kind of generate traction and noise around their brand. So how to actually get people engaged with their audiences, which was in the days before social media and video marketing really kicked off. It was more about how to create word of mouth, how to maximize events and exhibitions and stuff like that. So I started that when I was 24, as I said. I ran that for 4 years, and that went really well, had loads of fun. And then I formed the agency kind of coming out of that 7 years ago.
Okay, and was there or has there been, I know your leadership development is one of your passions. Tell us a story about a significant turning point or a point of breakthrough you've had along your leadership journey.
Oh man, that's a big question. There's so many answers I can give you. I'll tell you a couple of things. When I started my first business, I remember God saying to me, "Don't borrow a thing. I'm going to provide everything." Mm-hmm. So I was like, "Okay, what does that mean? You need some money to set up a company's house. You need bloody blah blah, some to set up a bank account, all of that." Mm-hmm. So I went to an event, and it was a closed invitation event, and it was a charity event. And at the end of the event, the CEO said to everyone that was there, "I'm going to give each of you £50, and I want you to sow that £50 into something else, into your business or into whatever." And myself and my then business partner were there together, and that was the £100 that we needed to start the business. Wow. So God provided straight from there. Started the business, and it was another real circumstance where God just really paved the way and showed me that, I've got the gifts and the abilities to do what I'm called to do, but He's going to really provide everything else. And so I ran an event, and I ran this kind of event on viral marketing. And a guy walks up to me afterwards and says, "Look, I want to give you guys opportunity to tender for this large contract." And it was a good sized contract. We tendered, won it the next week, and that set me up. So, there's been a real amazing, seeing God break through in business year on year, day upon day. And every year I've been in business, we've had the privilege of being able to grow systematically every single year, which has been really, really great.
And where did your fascination with marketing begin?
I think I've always been interested in that. I've been interested in communication, being able to help people connect, be able to connect brands to audiences. I think people have such a narrow understanding, a viewpoint of marketing, and I've always loved it. I remember at the age of 15, I did my work experience in doing marketing. I launched a loyalty club for a load of the restaurants and cafes and bars in Maidstone. So I got them all together and made them join this kind of like loyalty scheme thing, which is like 20 odd years ago. So I remember just thinking about how to engage people and how to get people engaged with businesses and brands. So I've always had a passion for it. Studied at university, did a degree in business economics. I then just forged my own career from there, really. I believe you've got to do what you're passionate about. I can't just turn up to work every day. I've got to do something that ignites my heart and gets me going, and then gets those going around me. So marketing's been it.
I know a lot of people, like you said, they struggle with marketing. I was listening to somebody recently saying that, in business, marketing is everything, no matter what industry you're in. If you go from industry to industry or business to business, you'll always fail if you don't get the marketing right. But if you get the marketing right, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, you'll find a way to make it happen. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest mistakes we see, particularly with startups or small businesses, is that they get the product or service right. They get accountant in place, get the finances in place, but they don't get out to market strong enough and consistent enough. And one of the biggest challenges with marketing is consistency. Is constantly being in front of your potential customers, constantly engaging with your current customers, really just portraying your key messages all the time, but in the right way. So, for example, when the credit crunch kind of kicked in 2008, most businesses I know cut their marketing budget, and the few that I know, I was some amazing stories of people that increased their budget, they're the guys that got the advantage in the marketplace, and they're the guys that got the results coming through it. So I really believe that you've got to constantly be out there, talking and communicating.
What role does marketing play in ministry, do you think?
I mean, I always say this. I always say that Jesus was the best communicator that ever lived. He could take a completely new proposition to the world called the kingdom of God. He could reunite people to the Father. He opened up the way for a whole new life and a whole new faith. And he just told it in simple stories. He just did it in a simple way. He did it in a way that the average person could understand. He didn't use big words. He didn't use big phrases. He just brought it down to where the people are at. So I always say he was the best communicator that ever lived. And so it's about taking those principles and applying them to what we're involved with. So often church can be separate from the community, or they're doing stuff that they keep using words and phrases that the community doesn't understand, or doing things that people don't understand. So I think communication and marketing in a church is really important.
So how does somebody, let's say someone is listening today, they're a young minister, or they've recently planted a church and they're thinking about creating that marketing message. Where should they start?
I think being clear on who you are. All good marketing starts with a very clear message. It all starts with a very clear proposition, it's called. But what it basically means is knowing what makes you you. And I think that, God's created us to all have different expressions of church and different expressions of the kingdom. And it's about knowing what makes you you, and what you've got to bring to that whole equation, and just be able to think about it in a practical way. There's such a challenge sometimes between church being so separate from where the community is at, and it becomes like a secular kind of sacred divide. And I think that, I've seen lots of great churches communicate things really well through video, through blog posts, through a strong website. So if someone comes onto your website, are they going to understand what you guys are all about? Do they get your ethos and your flavor and your personality? And, is it attractive to them? Online websites have become the window with which people see the world nowadays. So how does your website look? Are you guys engaged on social media? Are you showing the great things that you guys are doing, the great youth groups, the fun stuff, the vibe that's going on? And I think, nowadays with social media and online marketing, particularly, you've got such and almost an easy way of communicating what God is doing out to a community.
So clarity is important. So being clear about who you are and the message that you want to send, that's the first step. So they get that. Where do they go from there exactly?
I think it's just been, as with everything with marketing, it's been able to test it. It's been able to, put on events and try things that work and see how it goes, and being able to measure things. I think one of the things that you see a lot in business is that guys will measure things. They'll run a campaign, put something out there, measure results, and make it better. Right. But often in church circles and leadership that I've been involved in churches that I've seen, is that we just continue to do the same old thing, time in, time out. We don't change things up. We don't think about things creatively. And then, I think it's Einstein that says it, isn't it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing time and time again, expecting different results. We can pray for different results, but if we keep doing the same thing, why will different results come?
It's great, man. It's great advice for all of us, really, for ministers, leaders. Oftentimes, like you say, we separate sacred and secular. And, there are churches that are thriving right now across the country. And at the same time, there are churches, ministries that are literally dying in terms of numbers. What do you think the difference is between the two? Coming into our leadership kind of arena now, but what is it that? I'm sure churches that are thriving, that are growing, and churches that are not doing so well. And what do you think, in your opinion, is the difference between the two?
I think some of the churches that I've seen that thrive and grow are really clear on their calling and their mandate. The guys that are out there to kind of impact communities, they do it really well. Guys that are out there to kind of train leaders, they do it really well. I think, not many churches can be a one size fits all. God gives us many different parts to one body, right? And I think, that's really, really key. I think the ability to raise up leaders, I always say a church is only as strong as its core grouping of people. In other words, the number of people it's got that are inputting, that are taking responsibility, that are taking ownership. There's lots of people that are, that just want to metaphorically warm the pews. But if you can get people engaged and mobilized, then you can do a lot more as a church. And again, a lot of that comes down to communication. Does your church know what's going on? Does it know the vision? Is it clear on your values and your DNA? And I think the churches that get that right seem to be the ones that seem to be vibing.
Are you seriously fired up about growing as a leader in business or church-based ministry? Are you feeling somewhat frustrated about not having realized your full potential in what you've been called to do? Could you do with someone to help you get some extra clarity or to be a sounding board for your plans and ideas? Great athletes have coaches, so do great leaders. The right leadership coach for you will result in an increased sense of clarity, direction, and purpose, dramatically increasing the results you achieve. If you're ready to step up, contact Errol to book a free, no-obligation, introductory coaching session and see whether Errol is the right coach for you. Errol takes the lessons learned from his own leadership journey and from his extensive research to help leaders and entrepreneurs to step into their biggest challenges and rise to their next level. Email admin@errollawson.com right now to schedule your call.
In your leadership journey, personally, what's been your biggest challenge so far? Tell us a story about that.
I mean, I've been in leadership both in business and in church for a fair few years now, for kind of 12, 13 years. And, I've had the huge privilege of being able to travel around the world, see different church organizations and structures. I've worked with global businesses. I've worked with startups. So I've seen leadership in many different environments. And I think for me, some of the challenge is goes right back to mission and values, that people being clear on their vision, on their mission, on their values, and then developing strategies that build from there. So many times in both church and in business, people just try and do stuff. They run programs, they run campaigns, and they're not really sure why they're doing what they're doing. So I think so often we ask, what should we do and how should we do it? I always take leaders back and say, well, why should we do it? So for me, it's, my biggest challenge has always been to help leaders understand why they should do what they're doing and know why they should do what they're doing, because that's what breeds passion. That's what breeds success.
That level of clarity.
Absolutely. Yeah. Clarity and leadership is absolutely massive.
So when someone's lost their why, because not you lose your why, but sometimes we can be so busy, right? And we're focused and we've set our goals and we've got our goals down into manageable steps, step by step, and we can see specifically what the pathway is. And then we get so tunneled down and we forget the reason why we're even doing this stuff.
That's right.
If we forget that why, how do we get back to that why?
Yeah, I think, for me, in my leadership journey, I've always had people around me that can speak into my life. I've always had mentors around me. I've had people that have helped to train me up and equip me and knowing how to, not just how, but why to do things. So for me, being accountable has been a real key part of my leadership journey. It's been about, been making sure that I can bounce things off people. Even in my life, I'm the leader of my business, I'm a leader of my church, leader of my household. I'm always in a leadership position, but it's been able to have those people around me that aren't just yes men, but people that would ask me the tough questions. Hey, why are you doing that? Why are you spending so much time on that? What are you doing that for? And being able to ask me the tough questions that I can bounce back and I can reason and go, do you know what? You're right. Humility is key with all of this. Humility in leadership is massive. It's not just a one size fits all. It's a journey that you've got to go on and constantly evaluating where you're at. But you've got to put good, like-minded people around you. It's such a key to leadership, in my opinion.
It's good. It's good. And at this stage now in your journey, how do you now define success?
Yeah, I think for me, success is number one, being obedient to what God's put on your heart. It's very easy to get pulled left and right and to please people and to, not quite do the thing that you wanted to do because you just, you either got caught people pleasing or you got caught just kind of doing it the easy way. So I think first and foremost, success in my mind is doing things God's way, doing things what He said, how He said it. I think that's really, really key. And then practically, I think building the right principles around you, like I said, being accountable, being humble, being willing to change, seek advice, don't think you know all the answers. I think success, you know you're being successful if you're constantly growing, if you're constantly letting God grow you.
And John Maxwell, I think it was said that success can be, or the secret to success can be found in your daily routine. What does typically the first 90 minutes of your day look like each day?
90 minutes, the first 90 minutes of my day, that's a good question. I've got 2 kids, 2 young boys. I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So that usually starts with them running into our bedroom at about 6:30, 6:45 for big cuddles. And so we usually start with quite a good bit of family time. So we just have lots of cuddles in bed, and we just, lots of wrestling because they're boys. So it's cuddles and it's wrestling. Then it's kind of, we spend breakfast time together. So we have breakfast, we get dressed together, and, we have a good chance to pray together. My boys have a quiet time, so they have some time, and they get some time to read the word and just pray. And, we really build that into their lifestyle. And then a couple of mornings a week, I take my 6-year-old to school, and then my wife takes him to school the rest of the time. So it's either a school run before work or I'm straight into work. So I get into the office about 8, 8:15, set the vision and the plan for the day. We have a team meeting at 9 o'clock. Just a quick scrum, we call it, and we have a scrum at 9 and just make sure everyone's lined up for the day. And then, so my day starts about 6:30, 6:45, and then it's in the office for kind of 9 o'clock, between 8 and 9, depends what I'm doing.
Cool. And have there been any other key habits that have contributed to your success?
Yeah, I think so. I think as I mentioned before, constantly learning is massive. Constantly reading, looking out for things, listening to the right things. I think, I always try and take the last portion of my day to learn, and I always, evaluation and learning is really, really key. Because often the difference between good success and great success is in the small tweaks, the small changes. It's not necessarily always in the big strategies. So I've learned to, learning is absolutely vital. I think maintaining that focus throughout the day. So not just going for 5 hours without getting up. I have short, sharp meetings. We do a lot of our meetings standing up. So keeping myself physically fit and energized is really important as well. So just looking at body, soul, and spirit throughout the day. So key habits are definitely learning and reading, making sure that within my day there's always a chance for some relationship building time. So whether that's with my staff members or with my family, but always putting some time for relationship. One of the key habits that I've built into my life is that however busy I am, I'm always home by 6 o'clock or 6:15 to put my kids to bed. For me, that my number one priority is my family, aside obviously from my relationship with God. And so I'm home by 6:15 every single day. I put my kids to bed. They get that quality time with me. They get that time to read, to wrestle, to read the Bible, just to have fun together. I've built a habit over the last few years. I don't do any work or any ministry work on a Saturday. So Saturday is my day off, and it's my family time. It's my time to chill and just to kind of, be with my family, because, God placed a Sabbath in place for a very specific reason. It doesn't glorify God working 7 days a week. That's called a slave mentality, So, it's kind of, it's just making sure that we're trying to align my lifestyle with the principles of God.
Amen. Cool. And as a leader, what's your biggest weakness?
Biggest weakness is the type of leader I am is quite a visionary leader. Like, I love new things. I love to see things, put into place. And a weakness I've had to work on over the last few years is not just being led by vision, but making sure there's a clear strategy, a clear plan, and making sure the timing's key. I think one of the things I've realized in leadership is that so much of it's about timing. You can have a great idea and even a great plan, but do it at the wrong time and it fails. So I think some of my weakness has been sometimes, shooting ahead too quickly. So I've had to learn to take a step back, to engage with people, to get the early adopters on board, to make sure there's a clear strategy in place, and then make sure that I do things in the right timing. So my weakness has really been about, sometimes I overshoot things quite quickly.
It's good, mate. It's good. And what's your biggest strength?
I think, I suppose you do all these kind of, these strength tests, strength finders and all that sort of stuff. And I think that what often comes out and what often resonates in my heart is vision, really, the ability to see things that aren't there and to make them happen. I'm very much a doer. I don't believe in just talk. You know, it's about putting things into action. So I think that's a real strength of mine, has been able to grow things and make things happen. I've had the huge privilege of being able to help many startups and many businesses, and as well as established companies, and really help them to get off the ground and be fruitful. You know,
it's interesting that oftentimes our strengths and weaknesses are the same, are different sides of the same coin.
That's right.
And so vision can be a weakness and vision can be a strength. You know, it's quite interesting. Was there anything that was ever holding you back from going into leadership? And what was it, if there was?
I think, you know, sometimes many people struggle with the fear of failure, right? Many people that I've seen, many leaders in every environment, they don't do what they really want to do because they're scared of failing. You know, and I think that's a big thing. But in my life, it was almost, you know, and I know there's a phrase around it, but in my life, there's almost that fear of success. You know, it's that fear of actually that, you know what, maybe we could make a real difference. Maybe we could do something here that leaves a legacy for the next generation. Maybe we could do something of significance. And in the past, that's kind of held me back. Is it, yeah, but it's just me. It's just little old me. What have I got to bring? Can I really do that? Is that vision just a stupid thought, or is that something that comes from God? And so you can almost doubt God. You can almost doubt what he's saying to you because you almost don't want to believe it. You don't want to believe that he could use you for something, you know, and that kind of mentality is not from God's heart, you know. So I think over the years I've had to learn to, you know, to trust God that if he speaks for something, he will see something come to pass, you know. And I've seen it happen time and time again. So, you know, I think there's a fear of failure that's a problem in leaders' lives, but also a fear of success sometimes.
And it's really cool for anyone listening, you know. This, we sometimes call it the imposter syndrome, don't we? Like, who am I to do this? Who am I to be able to attempt this great thing? I want you to hear, guys, that, you know, this is, you know, Dan's done some amazing work and still doing some amazing work. And, you know, he's opened up to say, hey, even as a leader, even as someone who's been doing things for the Lord for a number of years, this can still be an issue, or has been an issue. And if you feel that way now at the beginning of your journey or at any point in your journey, know that it's absolutely normal, like it's part of the system. And I think, not you think, Dan, but I think that actually the more we try stuff and we do stuff and we confront that fear, the least powerful it gets.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think, you know, it comes down to a trust thing, you know, just being able to trust that God and his promises are bigger than you and your fear of failure, and being able to translate that into action. You know, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be scared. I'm going to get out of the boat and I'm going to do it. And I think, you know, the more I've applied that to my life, the more amazing things I've seen happen. Ministries start, salvations, businesses grow, you know, just healings, just amazing things across the board. And that's just not because I'm, you know, not just because of the gifting, but it's because of the trust in God that he will make it happen.
Amen. And you mentioned mentors earlier and accountability and what have you. Who have been your top three most significant mentors along your journey so far?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of my most significant mentors has been the old senior pastor of Jubilee Church. He's a South African guy, and you know, he changed my whole mindset of what church is. That it's not just something you go to on a Sunday, but it's the people of God that are called to make a difference and impact a community. So that really put a huge passion in my heart for community impact, and that everything I'm involved with is about benefiting the wider community and about blessing others. So he really helped to really stir the entrepreneurialism within me. So he was great. And he pastored me for many years. I think another big mentor has been someone who's not a Christian. He's a guy I've looked up to in business for a number of years, and he's just a real steady ship. You know, he's been around the world. He's seen businesses grow. He runs trading floors for global banks. He's not scared of big vision, but he's just every now and again put that quiet word in my ear to say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? You know, slow down, Dan, speed up. And he's been such a constant force, which has been really incredible. You know, so God's really brought Christian mentors and non-Christian mentors across my path. You know, and I suppose one of the last people to say is actually a leader of a kind of group of churches, and he's showing me that if you apply the principles of God over a consistent period of time, you can stay on the cutting edge over a long period of time. You know, lots of leaders I see, you know, they come and go. You know, they come in quickly, big vision, get burnt out, and off they go. But this guy has been in ministry for like 40 years, you know, probably longer, maybe 50 years now. And he's just seeing God work throughout every single day of his life. And he's just such a testimony for finishing strong, you know. And, you know, and I look at him and think, well, when I'm 70 odd, if I'm as half as passionate about the King and the kingdom as he is, then I'll be happy. You know what I'm saying? I'll be happy. So
let me dig a bit deeper into those relationships, those three people you mentioned. So your pastor, first of all, and then your business mentor, and then your the gentleman you just mentioned there. What's been the best piece of advice they've each given you on your journey?
I think that believe in yourself and do it. What stops you? What stops you from making those steps? What have you got to lose? Providing you're doing things built on the right principles and doing things the right way, what have you got to lose? You know, they've all really encouraged me on that journey, and both in terms of faith, but particularly in terms of leadership. You know, particularly, you know, my pastor, you know, I was released as an elder on in my church at 25, which is quite a young age for a traditional, you know, in traditional mindset. And yet, you know, he saw the gifting, he saw the abilities, and he just said, do it, come, let's journey together. So I think the one piece of advice is, you know, the question to ask yourself is, what have you got to lose? Do you trust God more than you trust your fear of failure?
Amazing. Any others from the other two guys? Was that the same thing that was the theme for all three?
I think Dave, who's kind of, as I said, someone I look up to, who's walked in ministry for, you know, many, many years. I think one of the key things he taught me was that no matter how busy you are, you're too busy not to pray. You're too busy not to put God at the center of everything you're doing. You know, I'm a busy guy, and it's very easy, if you choose to, just to start to rely on your own strength and rely on your own abilities and your own giftings without pressing into the source. So I think, you know, one thing for me is that constant alignment with the source. You know, if that's where you get your power from and your energy from and your vision from, then you've got to be plugged into the source.
That's great, man. We're almost done now, Dan. What's the one thing you're most fired up about right now?
Yeah, I think I'm fired up about so many things right now. I'm just trying to narrow it down to one thing. I think I'm fired up because the world's getting a smaller place, right? You know, it's amazing to see that I'm connecting with, you know, leaders in backwater Kenya, right through to Nigeria, to Canada, to Australia. And there's a real global vision that I'm seeing begin to happen around leaders, both business leaders and church leaders, that want to make a bigger community impact. Not just interested in either running their churches on a Sunday or running their businesses on a Monday. They want to see a bigger kingdom impact happen. So I'm really fired up about bringing those guys together and really just seeing what God will do over the next 5-10 years, you know?
Awesome, man. And how do we find out about you? Before we even get to that, do you have a book or a resource that you've read maybe, or you're reading, that you'd recommend for an up-and-coming leader or entrepreneur?
That's a really good question. You know, I read so many different types of books. I'm just trying to think, what books am I reading now? I think for me, you know, it's about picking up inspiration from all sorts of different sources. So I read and listen to a lot of different things and try and filter through, Father God, what are you saying? You know, what are you saying? Because you can pick up nuggets of information and nuggets that are just pure gold from so many different sources. You know, I think people are very quick to judge and write off things. You know, that doesn't completely line up with what I think, therefore I think the whole thing's rubbish. And that's just a very naive way of looking at life, I think. I think you can really learn from so many different things. So, you know, at the moment, like, I read a lot of biographies. I've been really inspired by certain people's biographies recently. So sounds silly, but I'm reading a lot of Bear Grylls stuff. Just not because he's some kind of action hero, but because he stuck true to who he was and to who he is, you know. And I think I really respect that. As someone who's out there, but is sticking true to who they are. He knows his message, he knows what he can bring, and he just brings it.
Awesome. And Dan, tell us please, how do we find out more about you? Is there anything you're working on right now you want to promote? You've got a book coming out anytime soon.
It's funny actually because someone's actually asked me to start to write a book and start to write some of this stuff down. So I'm potentially looking at it. That's all I'll say right now. But yeah, I mean, our company website is bewonderful.co.uk. bewonderful.co.uk.
Yeah.
I also have a charity that we do a lot of community work through called the Wonderful Foundation.org. They're my two main companies that I run. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Dan Maudhub. I used to do a lot of writing and things like that. But to be honest, in the last few years, I've been busy kind of running businesses, having children, and running churches and stuff. So I'm kind of haven't done that much writing recently. But yeah, more than happy to connect with guys and be an encouragement.
Awesome, man. Dan, it's been great chatting to you, man. I know there's so much more that you could say right now, especially when it comes to marketing and business. There's so many really key takeaways there for all of us, whether we're in business or ministry, certainly about getting clarity about what it is exactly that we are, who we are, first of all, mission, vision, values, and then what it is that God has called us to do, and making sure that clarity is communicated through our marketing messages. Really, really good stuff there, man. Really appreciate your time today, bro.
Yeah, no worries. Great to talk to you. Thanks for talking with me.
No worries, man. Thank you again for joining us today on the Rising Generation Leadership Podcast. I pray you've been inspired, you've been lifted, you've been encouraged to take your personal leadership to the next level. We really encourage you guys to just take action, make it happen, do something, start somewhere, go out and change the world in some way, big or small. Guys, if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share with your friends, share with your loved ones, your colleagues, someone out there you think might benefit from hearing this great content. And if you want some more questions answering, you got a question, email me, Errol at errollawson.com. Or if you want a free 30 to 45 minute coaching session with myself around a leadership challenge or issue you're working on in your business, your church, or in your organization, please feel free to email me right away. We'll get you booked in. It's Errol at errollawson.com. Thank you again for listening. Go to our iTunes page, check it out, check out the previous episodes. Give us a nice review, that would be awesome. Really appreciate if you could do that for us. We really appreciate you just for being here and listening. Thank you so much. God bless you, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Rising Generation.